Hey guys, bonus video this week. This is hot off the press. Insane book event happened in Baltimore called A Million Lives Book Festival. There has been this, dare I say it, trend recently of book festivals competing with each other to see who can host the worst event possible. Stories from across the country about different book events that just haven't gone well. And plenty that do go well, to be fair, we just don't hear about those. But usually there's not enough for me to talk about to fill out a whole YouTube video, so I don't typically make content surrounding this, but I'm aware of it. I love watching TikToks about this stuff. Shout out to Grapey. She's my favorite book talk creator. I love her videos in general, but I especially love her coverage of these disastrous book festivals. She also makes YouTube videos. Definitely check her out. I saw her video on this and I was like, there's no way. There's no way. This event had me gobsmacked, bamboozled, flabbergasted. I had to make a video about it. This is hot off the press. Like I said, this happened May 2nd and 3rd. I'm recording this on May 5th. If any information changes between now and when I post it, I'll put text on the screen or a voiceover. And little disclaimer, I did not myself attend the event, so everything I'm about to tell you is based off of the accounts of authors and patrons who attended the event. I've watched their videos, I've compiled the information, and I'm about to relay it to you. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I love to make my YouTube videos feel like your work meetings. That's the vibe I'm going for. Okay, so this is the website for A Million Lives Book Festival. Let's read the description. A Million Lives Book Festival is the perfect event to make more bookish friends. This event will include a vendor hall, panels, a content creation room, fandom cosplay meetups, a cosplay competition, and a ball. Let's see when it is. May 2nd and 3rd, 2025, and it looks like the schedule is coming soon. Yeah, they might need that. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's okay. So it's at the Baltimore Convention Center in Maryland, and then schedule info coming soon. Like I said, was a few days ago, so I do think they probably are going to need the schedule. The hotel block is at the Hilton, and the tickets. Let's go over the different tickets, right? You've got the Page Turner. This ticket includes access to our vendor hall, cosplay meetups, and content creation room only on May 3rd, and that's for 50 doll hairs. Then you have the Cloud Walker, which is 150 doll hairs. This ticket includes access to our vendor hall, cosplay meetups, panels, event swag bag, and content creation room on May 2nd and 3rd. So you can pay $50 to go the one day, or you can pay $150 and go for 2 days and get a swag bag, or you could pay 250 doll hairs. This ticket includes access to our vendor hall, cosplay meetups, panels, event swag bag, and content creation room on May 2nd and 3rd, and access to our Lavender Romance Ball. So you get everything you get in the Cloudwalker tier, but you also get to go to the ball. Doesn't everybody love a ball? So then if we click about the website, we have a schedule and a panel schedule, and then we have a map here with all the vendors. Okay, all right. So now that we've gone through what the event is, or what it was supposed to be, let's talk about how it went. Let's flash back to 18 months ago when all the authors are being reached out to. The table fee was $150, which means that these authors would pay $150 to the event, and for that money, they would get a table where they could sell their books in the vendor hall. It seems to me as though that also covered admission. I did not see any of the authors also talk about paying for a ticket, so I'm pretty sure that the table fee also got you admission to the event and you did not buy a ticket otherwise. I myself have never been a vendor at one of these events. That makes sense to me, but I could be wrong about that. There were apparently 120 authors just about that signed up for this event. Quick side note, you can tell by the fact that I'm making a video about it that this probably did not go very well. Here at the front of the video, I wanted to tell you that somebody put together a website, indieauthorconnect.com. I'll link it in the description. This has a list of all of the authors that were impacted by this whole situation, so I definitely recommend scrolling through, checking them all out, seeing if you vibe with any of their books, maybe buying a few, just because maybe something good can come out of all of this. Maybe we can support some indie authors, right? I just wanted to put that up front in case you don't watch the whole thing. So there were about 120 authors that signed up for this event, and there was a hotel block at the Hilton, as we saw on the website. Now, featured authors had their hotels comp. They got a free hotel for the event, free stay at the Hilton. That's kind of nice, right? There's also an option to sponsor this event at different levels. There's an author named Percy J. She was the one who made kind of the initial set of videos that went super viral about this whole thing. She says she paid for the highest tier of sponsoring the event, which involved things like a Facebook page takeover day and them having a different day on the Facebook page that was dedicated to her and all this stuff. According to her, she never got any of that leading up to the event. Many of the authors that I've seen talking about this have said that some of these things were red flags leading up to the event, that it wasn't going to go very well. Percy J herself had said that it frustrated her that she wasn't getting the stuff from the sponsorship, but that the organizer of the event is herself an indie author and somebody that a lot of these authors actually knew. And sometimes people get a little bit in over their head. A lot of them said that they had this feeling that the event probably wasn't going to go off without a hitch, we'll say, but that they didn't think it was going to be as bad as it ended up being, and they were trying to give the organizer the benefit of the doubt. To be fair, I don't think anybody could have anticipated how bad it actually went. People are comparing it to DashCon and Firefest, so if that gives you any idea of what we're in for. Featured authors were contacted the week of the event and informed that the Hilton rep had stopped responding to the event organizer, so she'd had to put them up at the Days Inn across the street. Most authors I saw talking about this were fine with a less nice hotel than the Hilton. The problem wasn't that they couldn't possibly stay at a hotel that wasn't a Hilton. It was more just when you've been promised a Hilton and then you're let know at the last minute that you're not getting the Hilton, that there's gonna be some disappointment involved in that, and this is yet another red flag that this event maybe isn't gonna exactly go off without a hitch, right? Michaela Ornado was another author that was making some TikToks about this. She said that at some point during the event, she was told that the organizer's card had declined at the hotel because her identity was stolen, and so they froze her cards as a result, and so she had to pay for the hotel up front, but that the organizer was going to reimburse her for this, so it was temporarily paying for the hotel. I fear she's not getting that money back probably, but she seemed to know that in the TikTok. I believe the whole story about the card getting declined was after the event had started too, so Michaela would have stayed in that hotel one night if not two by the time she was told that she had to front the money to pay for it and that they were gonna pay her back. Allegedly just an upfront payment. I guess we'll see if she gets the money. Issues aside, authors showed up to the convention center between 7 and 8 a.m. to set up their tables for the convention hall to open at 10. There was apparently no signage telling them where to go in this massive convention center, and everybody was just wandering around with suitcases full of books they were planning on selling, super confused. Apparently, it was the security guards for the building that was pointing everybody where they needed to go. There were no signs, no balloons, no anything to indicate where in the convention hall this event was happening. Now, I don't know how big the Baltimore Convention Center is, but if this happened at the Phoenix Convention Center, I'm not joking when I tell you that that event center is a city block. If you did not know where you were going, you would not find where you were going. And there were no badges. No badges, nothing to indicate the authors for the event. Some people were given wristbands, some people weren't. And the people who were given wristbands were given the same wristbands that the attendees eventually were given. So there was no way to indicate if somebody was an author attending the event or an attendee. And apparently not everybody got a wristband, which meant that people could just wander into the event off of the street because there was no way to indicate whether or not they had actually paid for a ticket or a table. There was also a bunch of confusion with the table map. I'll put the map that was on the website on the screen. Apparently this is what they were planning on doing, but then they were informed that this layout does not work with the fire code. I don't know anything about fire codes, so I couldn't tell you why, but apparently this layout does not work with the fire code. So while there was a map, that map was not accurate as to the layout of most of the actual tables. So most of the authors had a lot of trouble finding what table they were supposed to be at. Michaela said that when she got to her table, there was another author there, and when she approached somebody from the event to figure it out, they gave her a completely different table, and then they told her that if an author came up and said that that was their table, to point them to the event so that they could figure out what other table to give that author. So doing great so far. Bear in mind, it's not even 10 a.m. This was a little confusing to me, combined with the fact that some people were saying that the table layout didn't match what was on the map. I can only assume that Michaela was maybe one of the side row of tables, because that wouldn't have been moved, or maybe she went to her table number. Maybe they had the tables numbered. Either way, multiple reports that it was super confusing finding tables, and basically everybody had to be assigned one day of. Remember, there are 120 authors, so presumably 120 tables set up at this event. They also didn't have any tablecloths, which is just such a tiny thing, but apparently they said, yeah, we're gonna have tables and tablecloths for everybody. I guess that enough people brought extras that they were able to figure this out in the moment, and people were loaning their tablecloths to other people, but the event said they would have tablecloths and they didn't. Again, it's not even 10 a.m. But after all of that, The authors were set up, the tables were set up, and it was time to open the doors to the people who bought that mid-tier or top tier ticket level that had access to both days, which by all reports ended up being somewhere between 30 and 50 people per day for the day. 30 to 50 people per day. Different people were spewing out different numbers, but I did not hear one over 50. And remember, anyone showing up this day is supposed to get a swag bag because they're in the tiers of tickets that have swag bags. I think I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the sponsorships, but one of the things that you could do to sponsor the event was to, instead of paying money, provide some sort of item like a sticker or a pin or something like that to go in the swag bags on top of what the event was providing. So there were supposed to be swag bags for the people walking in. Some of those items were provided by the event, and some of the items were provided by authors who were using that as marketing. You can probably already guess there were no swag bags. Not a swag bag in sight, okay? The event coordinator claimed, and I'm not joking, that the convention center threw away the swag bags. Threw them away? Why would they do that? Now, I saw that somebody contacted the convention center to ask them if this actually happened and if the convention center accidentally threw away all of the swag bags for the event. As of now, they've received no response from the convention center. I believe they just contacted them today as of me filming, but if that changes before I upload, I'll add a little text to the screen. I will say, I find the story hard to believe. I don't know why they would throw away the swag bags. I don't know why they would do that. Unless they were sitting in an area they weren't supposed to be in. Maybe they were blocking a fire door. Maybe they were just in a room that was reserved for a different event that was supposed to be happening, and the convention center informed her that she had to move them, and then she ignored that. Or they didn't know who put them there, and so they threw them away because they didn't know what they were. But on top of everything else, I'm starting to think there were just no swag bags, but I guess we'll find out. We'll see what the convention center says. But you have to also remember, I said there were 120 authors with tables at this event. So for only somewhere between 30 and 50 people to show up, that means there are significantly more authors at this event than there are attendees. I'm going to show a video that I saw of what the hall actually looked like for the majority of the day. This is insane. This looks like a convention hall that's about to open. This looks like a convention hall where people are lined up outside ready to walk in. This is the convention open. This is it. That's the festival. And this was true into the next day. Apparently, the number of attendees they think about doubled, which puts it at maximum 100 people for the whole entire weekend. I guess absolute maximum 150 if somehow all 50 of the people from the first day did not show up the second day. So if I were being as absolutely charitable as possible based off of everything I've seen, the maximum number of attendees for the weekend was like 150. So 30 more than how many authors they had. I guess that's a win. I have only found one TikTok from an attendee about any of this, probably because the event was so small and so few people went to it. Surely that's the end though, right? Surely they just had all this trouble setting up and then basically nobody showed up and it was just awkward for a few days and then that was the end of it. Surely I don't have 2 more pages of notes. That would be crazy. So another big complaint was the schedule or lack thereof. Now you might be confused because if you go and look at the website right now, there's a schedule and there's a panel schedule. And this did confuse me when I was researching this because consensus across the board, the schedule was confusing. Nobody knew when the panels were supposed to be. Nobody knew when anything was. How is that the case when there's a schedule on the website? I had already kind of thought maybe she added the schedule after the fact to cover her booty a little bit, the event organizer, I mean. But the video I saw of the attendee, her name is Coco, she confirmed this. She said there wasn't a schedule on the website during the event and that the schedule was added after the fact. She said there was some information about what the panels were, but there was no information about when or where they were, and that the schedule that you see on the website now was added after the event. There was an author who said that they were supposed to be on a panel, but they had no idea when it was, they had no idea where it was supposed to be, and nobody came and got them to say, hey, it's time for your panel, let me walk you over there, so they just didn't go to it, because what are they supposed to do at that point? Let's talk about the panels. First of all, nobody knew when they were, like I said. Second, apparently, in order to announce that the panel was starting, they they would just stand there and yell into the convention hall that the panel was starting. That empty room with all those tables with the authors at them, somebody would just like stand somewhere and be like, the narrator panel is starting. The narrator panel is starting in this room if anybody wants to go. There's two specific panels I want to focus on. The first, there was a BIPOC author panel, which was on the VIP day, which is a little bit weird all on its own, putting that on the less traffic day of the 2 days. But what if I told you the moderator for the panel was a white man? Okay. Would it shock you to hear he wasn't asking the best questions? People were kind of offended by his questions. Apparently, they weren't very well thought out. I saw somebody say that it kind of sounded like he typed into ChatGPT what would be good questions to ask at a BIPOC author panel. So there's that. And then on the second day, there was an audiobook narrator panel that didn't even have chairs. Chairs? We're sitting on the floor? Those are provided by the convention center. Like, how did you not even have chairs? They must have forgotten to submit one of those like room setup request things. They sat on the floor cross-legged. Adults cross-legged on the floor. Imagine. I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's not funny. People paid money for this event. I'm sorry. So imagine, just put yourself into the shoes of the attendees. You're in this empty hall. All these authors, basically nobody else there going up to any of the tables. You hear a person screaming into the void that the audiobook narrator panel is going to start, and you walk in and everybody is sitting crisscross applesauce on the fucking floor. The floor. That would be my Karen origin story, I fear. They were also supposed to have that content creation room. You remember that from when I was going through the tickets? There was supposed to be a room where you could like film content in. Whatever that means. I'm struggling to understand even what the concept behind this is. When you go to conventions, a lot of times they have big signs that you can take pictures and videos in front of that have the name of the event and things like that. But what is a whole entire content creation room supposed to be? Is it a bunch of like photo booths? I don't even understand what the plan was, but whatever the concept behind it was, whatever the original idea was, what they ended up having was an empty conference room. It was just an empty conference room. Presumably no chairs in that room as well, because if they had chairs in there, why wouldn't they host the audiobook narrator panel in there? So the first day it was just an empty conference room, and on the second day everybody was told that it was closed down due to technical issues. I'm not really sure what technical issue an empty conference room can have, but apparently that was why you couldn't go in there the second day. But you know, as awful as this whole event has been, we have made it to the end of the second day, and it is time for the ball. The fantasy ball. Everybody loves a fantasy ball. You get dressed up, you talk to other book lovers, you get to live out your fantasy dreams of attending one of the balls, right? You are not prepared for the video I'm about to show you. What am I even supposed to say? Like, what? There's nothing to comment on. There's nothing in this room. But my chair is slowly lowering. Hang on. It does this sometimes. Allegedly, that speaker isn't even from the actual event. Again, allegedly, that speaker is actually the property of a security guard. That felt really bad for everybody there because there wasn't even music. And so they brought their own personal speaker in to play the music for the event. So that was the Billion Lives Book Festival, or the A Million Lives Book Festival, I guess it's more accurately called. Two more things I wanted to share. First, there was a disabled author who deals with chronic pain who had emailed the event asking to waive the PA fee. Now, based off of context, I'm guessing that this is a fee, like you can be provided a PA by the event, but there's a fee for that, and it's somebody who helps you maybe carry things to your table or walks around with you or something like that, right? She says that she's emailed many other festivals that she's been at to ask to waive the PA fee because she's disabled, and so she needs somebody to help her carry things and also to be there with her in case she starts having spasms and needs help. So she needs a PA for accommodation reasons, so she usually asks either to have the fee waived or to get some kind of discount. She said that she's never had an event say no before because because it's accommodation. They shouldn't say no, right? This is because she's disabled. She needs a PA. She was told no by this organizer because they need to pay for the festival. Okay, if you need this one author's PA fee to pay for the festival, I'm starting to see how we ended up here in the first place. Which brings us to our other claim, which I'm calling an unverified claim for right now. The reason I'm calling this unverified is because it's not that I don't believe people, it's just that I have yet to find an actual first-hand account of this. Everything that I've seen about this has been different authors saying that they heard from other authors that the event coordinator was talking shit about some of the authors and the tattoo artists that they had hired to work at the event as well. So these authors heard that she was talking poorly about them, but I haven't seen anybody actually say she was talking poorly about them to me. I heard it, and so that's why I'm calling it slightly unverified for right now, but I definitely believe it. Molly said that she heard that the organizer told some of the other authors that she was terrible and demanding for asking for accommodation for her disability. Again, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I would hope you don't need me to explain to you why a lot of this is not okay, right? So you might be wondering, after all of this, how did the organizer react? At first, she put out a video saying the ball was not set up to standards and that she would refund anybody who asked her for a refund. Now, you can imagine there was a lot of backlash to this. First of all, that's not exactly taking accountability, babe. There was a lot more wrong with this event than just the ball, and saying it wasn't set up to standards doesn't even begin to capture what happened. And also saying you have to ask me for a refund to get one isn't great. So she got a lot of backlash, not just for the event, but for this apology. And the following night, she emailed all of the authors and said that she was going to be refunding everybody their money by the end of the month, meaning by the end of May 2025. I am not sure that she is going to follow through on that claim. I obviously hope that she does. That would be the best case scenario. It still doesn't really capture everything because some of the authors flew out for this event. Some of the authors rented their own hotel rooms. Some of the authors were promised they would get free hotel rooms and then ended up having to pay for them. We don't know because we've only really seen one story from one attendee, but we can presume that some of the attendees had some of these costs associated with attending the festival as well. So they might get their ticket reimbursed, but they're not going to get all of their money back. And then there's the authors who bought all of that swag for the swag bags. Are they going to get their money back for what they spent on the items that never got given to anybody? I don't think she's paying anybody back, if I'm being so for real. I unfortunately just don't think anybody's going to end up getting any money, which is really sad. I do think that the best case scenario is that she does refund everybody. I wish that it went even further than that and people just got reimbursed any of their expenses that they had associated with attending the festival. But like I said, there's a website. Let me get it again. There's a website called indieauthorconnect.com that has all of these authors listed out on there. So I highly recommend that you scroll through, see if there's anybody that you vibe with, any books you want to check out. And we'll see. Maybe she will. Maybe she'll refund everybody. I guess we'll find out. What a wild ride from start to finish. That was crazy. Do you see why I was like, I feel like I kind of have to talk about this? I have a few final thoughts for us here. The first is that I'm going to be very careful about the way that I say this. The event organizer at many points claimed that over 600 tickets were sold. The final number that she was claiming was 608, and then she said that about 140 people actually showed up. A lot of those in attendance actually think she's exaggerating the number of people that showed up to the event, or that she's including the authors in her final tally. There's even more people saying, how would she even know? They weren't giving people wristbands. They weren't giving people badges. Were they checking people in? We have no idea. Now, if you want to believe that more than 450 people bought a ticket and didn't show up, sure, fine. But the one thing I will say is thank God 600 people didn't show up to this event. And I don't even mean because they wouldn't have gotten the experience that they paid for. I mean because at that point, that would have been genuinely dangerous. People don't talk enough about how dangerous crowds can be, especially when there's confusion or they're upset or they don't know where they're supposed to go. This is all a very bad combination. All of this chaos was with 120 authors, and by everybody's counts, again, an absolute maximum of 150 attendees. Imagine there being 450 more people involved in that confusion. Very much opportunity for people to get hurt in some kind of crowd crush, but also they had no way of knowing if somebody had actually bought a ticket or not. And if everybody's confused as to whether or not people are actually even getting checked into with the event, then I can't imagine the security was that tight. Literally anybody could have walked in off the street. It doesn't seem like there was any security screening anybody, what they were bringing into the the event. And if they actually had that many people there, somebody could have hidden in the crowd a lot better, and the crowd itself could have been the dangerous part. Obviously, the best case scenario is just that the event goes off the way that it should, and that it's properly planned, and that it has a lot of attendees. That's the best case scenario. But I think given the way the event played out, it's actually kind of a good thing that not that many people showed up. I'm just glad nobody was harmed, I guess, is what I'm saying. Most people seem in agreement that they don't think that this was malicious on the organizers' front, but there are some people on TikTok who are saying this is fraud and she was trying to take advantage of some of these indie authors, especially because there was some conversation about there being basically no marketing for the event. Going back to Percy, she said that the only post that she even saw about the event was offering the tickets for 40% off. So there are some people who think it's intentional fraud, but a large number of people think it's just mismanagement and she was in way over her head. I actually think it's a third thing. I think she probably knew there were going to be basically no attendees. I mean, she knows how many tickets are sold and she's claiming it was 608, but we haven't seen receipts of that yet, and I find it very, very hard to believe that 3 times more people bought tickets and didn't show up than people that did. That just doesn't make any sense. Again, I'm kind of basing this theory off of some of what people have said about how little marketing there actually was. I don't know that she was intentionally taking advantage of these authors as much as she maybe didn't realize how much effort it actually takes to properly market an event, and didn't realize that, especially if she doesn't already have a very established social media presence, that it might be very difficult to get people to see the posts at all. And instead of just investing the money into sponsoring some of those posts or trying to market the event in other ways, she just thought to herself, well, if the attendance isn't all that great, I still made the money off the tables. So I don't know that she went into it planning to swindle the indie authors, but I do think that given how little marketing she actually did, there is a likelihood that at some point she realized either how difficult or expensive that marketing would be and thought to herself, well, is anybody gonna blame me if people don't show up? Like, as long as I tried to market it and everything else with the event goes well, if it's just that people don't show up, what am I supposed to do? You know, maybe she thought people wouldn't blame her for that, I guess is what I'm saying. No matter what, the lesson here is throwing an event is way harder than people think it is on the surface. Do not assume that 1 or 2 or 3 people could pull off an event of this size. It takes significantly more work than you might think to plan an event that even 100 people are going to go to, let alone 600, 700, 800. That's a lot of people. I think people just don't think through the logistics. So then they're like, okay, well, if you book an event venue that's big enough, and then you book the people that are going to be at the event, you book the vendors and you book the panels and stuff, that's all there is to it, right? This event is a perfect example of exactly what happens if all you do is rent the venue and get the vendors and the panelists. That's basically the extent of what these event organizers did, supposedly, allegedly, is get the event venue and then get people to be at the actual event. And that's what it ends up looking like. It takes so much more work to put on a massive event than you might think. Do not assume that you can do it on your own or with a group of like 2 or 3 people. Oftentimes, these festivals have entire teams of people that work behind them. There's so many book events that have gone this way in smaller ways, like I said. Let's just treat event coordinating with the respect it deserves. It's harder than you think. That's gonna be it for me today, you guys. What do you think of this? I'm guessing you're gonna think didn't go very well, but I would love to hear your thoughts. And not just on this event, but the trend in general of book events not going well recently. As always, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!